Okay, this is Tuesday 7th, and this is Site 2301. And we're getting close to, well, this will be the last day we're going to deal with these 5 lots. And as I was telling Samuel when he came in, I have not created the test yet. And I hope I don't have problems doing it because I may, based on another class of a different subject. But apparently, it's kind of hard to believe that our Blackboard system is actually more sophisticated than the publishers, and it has a our system won't accept any material from the publishers that is not in 9.0 or higher Blackboard configuration. And everything I have is in 7.1. So I had one heck of a time getting tests cranked out in my human sexuality class. So, but they have a test every week. You don't have a test every week. So I won't know whether I'm going to have problems with this afternoon. So I'll let you know by announcement, because the alternatives, I have an alternative, but it's a real pain. The alternative is for me to, in essence, cut and paste the exam, put it up on Blackboard, and then I have to provide you with a make-believe paper Scantron, and then you have to fill out the Scantron and then send it to me, and then I have to grade it. So you can imagine that's just going to be a cluster. If that happens, I hope that doesn't have to happen. Because in order for Blackboard to upload the exam, it has to be, first of all, it has to be in zip configuration, which is no problem, but it has to be in 9.0 or above, and that may well be a problem. So I don't know, because I haven't tried it. Oh, anyway, this whole semester has been a challenge. Why not another one? Hopefully it's not too stressful for you guys. All right. We started answering questions on the study guide, is that right? How far did we get? While you're looking at that, let me describe your 2 new handouts. They're double-sided. So on the first side is the neuron, which is a lot better drawing than what I did on the board, but you kind of get the idea. This is a neuron. You see all its parts. It even gives a little bit of description about what it does. And then on the back side is that ending of the terminal branch called a terminal bud, or somewhere I read it was like a button. Somebody called it a terminal. Oh, there it is on the front page. It calls them buttons, terminal buttons. But whatever you call it, this is what it looks like blown up. And this is where all the business occurs, in that synaptic gap right here, or more professional term, synaptic cleft. And you see the sending neuron, which is this one on top. You can see the vesicles, the neurotransmitters inside there. When the electric message comes down the axon, goes to the vesicle moves to the membrane here, shoots out a neurotoxin. Neurotoxin floats across the synaptic gap, looks for its specific receptor, and It finds it and locks in there. The chemical message now becomes an electric message. That electric message goes through the dendrite and into the soma of the receiving cell, and then the neurotransmitter is kicked out and goes back through the navigatable waters of the synaptic cleft, finds where it left. That this again, it finds a specific receptor site for whatever neurotransmitter we're talking about, gets reabsorbed into the vesicle because our body likes, loves, searches for homeostasis, right? So if it had 100 serotonin cells in that vesicle and it sent out one, and it wants to get that cell back. And if it doesn't, then we got problems. Okay, so tell me again where we left off. Did we finish chapter 1? Yes, that's good. That's progress. How about 2? Did we finish mod 2? Where does mod 2 start? Must be right here. Okay, did we complete 2? All right, here's what we'll do. We'll start on 2, and you tell me what questions you have on any of these pages while I go through it. Anybody have any questions about these questions on the first page on study guide mod 2? Yes, sir. What? Don't have a study guide. All right? Well, we're back now. What you need? I have an extra. Anybody else need one? You have a question? 78. You accurately isolate cause and effect. This is a good question. Thank you for asking that. To accurately isolate cause and effect, experimenters should use random assignment. No, random assignment is when you pick subjects and make sure that those randomly assigned subjects of your experiment reflect the bigger population that you're trying to make a statement about. Naturalistic observation. Naturalistic observation is just observing whatever phenomena you want to watch in its natural setting. So if you're watching how kids share toys, then you put them in the playroom, give them some toys, and watch what they do. If you want to, let's for instance, this is a good one for all of you who are parents. You want to know who the kid is really attached to? Put the mom and the pop on a park bench and have the kid playing, and the kid gets hurt. Who's the kid run to? Mom or dad? That's a natural observation. Mom. All right. Case studies. Case studies is a phenomenon where instead of looking at a bunch of people, we look at one person very closely. So we want to know whether wearing masks makes people feel more confident in not getting COVID. Instead of asking all of you or doing a random selection, we just pick one of you and sit you down and ask you a lot of questions about mask wearing. Okay? That's a case study. So by elimination, the answer, of course, has to be D. Correlation studies is a statistical phenomenon. And let's see, somewhere in here, there's probably something about cause and effect. Yes, indeed. Let's look at 61. Suppose that people who watch a lot of TV on violence on TV are also particularly likely to behave aggressively. This relationship would not necessarily indicate that watching violence influences aggressiveness or aggressive behavior because why? Anybody get an answer to that? B. Causation and association are not the same thing. Well, you know what causation is. I ate a burrito this morning for breakfast. Now my stomach is doing backflips. That's not true. I did have a burrito, but I'm not having backflips. I know what caused it. If I stand up here and pass gas and embarrass myself, oh, it was that bean burrito. Yeah. Okay, that's causing. That's causing. Association is things that sort of go along with. So you could say, well, I think it was the beans in the bean burrito that's making my stomach flip. But actually, it was all the jalapenos I put on. So the jalapenos are the cause of my stomach doing backflips, and the burrito or the bean part of the burrito is just associated with it because most people just don't eat jalapenos straight out. You know, they usually eat it with something. So association with is like another example. Suppose somebody's making an A in this class. Are they making an A in this class because their IQ is high? Is that what causes them to make an A? A high IQ? You're shaking your head no. Can you have a high IQ and not have an A in this class? Yeah. Why? Because you're lazy! No, not you. Go home. Don't want to work. When you get out of this classroom, do too much mocha, okay? Which will affect your progress in this class. But if you're in that normal range of intelligence and you work, fairly diligently, you're making A in this class. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're really that smart, because it takes more than smarts. You have some smart people who can't do it. Albert Einstein flunked high school math. What? He was a brilliant mathematician. Yes, he was. Why did he flunk high school math? Because it was freaking boring. He's in the back going, this is children's work. You're teaching me 1 + 1 = 2. He's out there doing, astro projections and mathematical equations, So he flunked math not because he couldn't do it, but because he was so bored. He couldn't keep focused. So that goes back to our question about correlations, coefficients on question 78. Coefficients are things that happen in your experiment that's not really what you're measuring. You're trying to measure something else. But there seems to be a trend about other things. Like you're trying to find out whether something this pill that you're taking is going to help you reduce your food intake, your caloric intake, and help you lose weight. So you're measuring one group that has a placebo, which is just a pill, but there's nothing in it, no medicine, just sugar pill or something. And then there's a group that actually gets the medicine, and you're comparing the two. Well, you're not looking at people's athletic styles, right? Everybody has a level of activity for themselves, but you're not asking about it. So when you do your experiments, you might find that the people who took the medication, that got the medication, the ones who had a high level of activity, physical activity, whether it's walking, running, aerobics, yoga, or something like this, they had the greatest weight loss. So did they lose weight because they took the pill? Yeah, but it seems like those who lost the most weight were people who were naturally more active and took the pill. So as physical activity rises, the effectiveness of the pill rises as well. Yes, you could be sedentary and lose weight on this pill, but you're going to lose more weight if you actually are physically active. So in the beginning of this experiment, we forgot, we didn't ask everybody, hey, what level of activity? What do you do normally a week or two or whatever? We didn't ask that because that's a factor that could affect you. So this correlational coefficients is when something goes up, what does the other thing do? Does it go up as well or does it go down? Because it can be positively correlated, negatively correlated, or not correlated at all, no change at all. So, trust me, that question is not a test question. It took me that long to describe it. We're not going to have a lot of research method statistical questions on this. Simple things like 65, which of the following methods is most helpful for clarifying cause and effect relationship? What's the answer to that? B, experiment. Do the experiment. That's why we do experiments. To say, is this like the children watching violent TV? Is it the violent TV that makes them violent? Or they violent before, and they don't want to watch Hansel and Gretel and Mickey Mouse or whatever the cartoons are today, Pretty Pony. They want to watch blood and guts. So that's the kind of movies, cartoons they like. By the way, in the old days, back before probably most of you were born, a lot of violence in cartoons. People smashing each other, and shooting them, and throwing them off of buildings and all sorts of stuff. Oh, they're only cartoons, yeah. But politically correct people look at that. Well, you're teaching kids to be violent. All right, next question. Six. The ethics code, the APA, and the BPS urge researchers to do what? A, avoid the use of monetary incentives in recruiting people. No, that's not a big deal. B, forewarn potential research participants of the exact hypothesis that this research will test. Can you do that? No. If you do that, say, hey, you're going to get the real pill. This is the real pill, and you're going to get the fake one. You can't do that. Because then mentally they're going to, oh, I'm going to pay for it. Which is not going to be good. Can't do that. C, avoid the manipulation of the independent variables to research involving human participants. That's the whole idea. That's why you're using human participants. So, by elimination, this is 106. The answer is D. Explain the research to the participants after the study has been completed. You can't do it beforehand because you're going to bias them. You heard the word in here, a blind experiment. A blind experiment is when I take the pill and I said, okay, here's your pill. Okay, here's your pill. Is it real? Is it placebo? Neither of you know. That's a blind experiment. The best is a double-blind experiment. You don't know which pill is which, and neither do I. Because I'm the researcher, and if I think my pill is pretty good, and I give it to you, and I ask you, this is a happy pill, and I ask you a week from now, how do you feel this week as compared to last week? Kind of a broad question, or maybe I actually put a liking scale in there. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the most happiest point in your life, to 1 being the saddest point, where do you fall in that spectrum today? This is before I give you the pill, and you say, I'm a 6. So then I give you a pill, ask you a week later, here's the same scale, 0 to 10, how do you feel today? Or describe how you feel. And most people describe things in very general ways. Well, I guess I think maybe I might be feeling better. Well, if it's my pill and I want to sell it and make $1 million, I'm going to say, oh, she said she was feeling better. But that's not what she said. She said, well, I might be feeling better. So it's better that I don't know who gets the pill. The only person who knows who the pills are somebody that's in the experiment, but they're not asking the questions, and I don't know who got what. Otherwise, I'm going to be unconsciously biased, and I might say something that I said she said, but she really didn't. That's why it's kind of important to have a liking scale or some other way of measuring other than somebody's personal feelings. That one, that was just you. All right. Here's, you want to know a good question? How about 111? Let's answer the 111. When we give you the chance to evaluate us at the end of the semester, a lot of times students say, I wish we could do more hands-on stuff. You know? And they're right. You are right. Because hands-on stuff, that's why I walk around and try to pull some of this hair out of your head because I can't do it anymore. Go around and do things like that. It tends to make people remember better because it's action. Or if you're involved with it, like in the experiment with Wilhelm one. If you're in that experiment and you're raising your hand and you're moving it when you hear both the noise or when you hear some bell or whistle or something. So the answer to that question is C, process information actively. The more, you got 5 senses, correct? The only way you get any information in your brain is through 1 or more of your 5 senses. So the more senses I can involve, the greater chance you can remember something. All right. Mod 2, dead and gone. And Mod 3, page 1. This one should be very easy. You've got a handout on your desk if you remember to pick it up. I got a little video that I added this morning, which you might be able to find. This thing cooperates with me. Yeah, it was here. It was gone. All right, let me do something else. Anyway, you got several videos on Blackboard. I just added one this morning. This is not a video, of course. But we had a little study session yesterday, and one of the things that came up was the limbic system. This is a graphic representation of the limbic system. This, if you had eyeballs here, your eyeballs would be over here. Your brain stem, which is not here, would be right here. This is the cerebellum, the back of your head. This is sometimes called the little brain because it controls your autonomic nervous system. Your heartbeat, your breathing, it's all controlled here. Now you know from your reading, when the brain is first developed, it's created from a neural tube. Part of it becomes your spinal cord, and the rest of it becomes your brain. The first thing to be created is the brain stem, which is the lowest part. And then all of that, of course, is your spinal cord. So the lowest part of your brain is the brain stem. Then comes these lower structures like the cerebellum. Then this limbic system is made up of parts of all of these other parts of the brain. So the brain grows from the bottom up, inside, out. So the very last part of your brain that is coming online, all the parts are there before you're even born. You're not getting new parts. What you're getting is more neural connections. You looked at a neuron and connecting to another one. What you have is more and more dendrites reaching out and touching other nerve cells. I'll take a guess here and say everybody in this room is under 29. So if you are under 29, your brain is still under some significant construction. The very last part of your brain. And where is that? Right here. Because right here is as far away from here as you can get, and it's as far away from the center as you can get. So it's up or high or up, and it's further out. So this part here, this part of your brain, which is called the prefrontal cortex. That's where your executive functions of your brain are, your decision making. Some of you are within, how many of you are within 5 years of 16 years old? In other words, you're 21 or below. Okay? Most of you. Now answer this in your mind. Today, do you make decisions today pretty much the same way you did when you were 16? No way at all. Now, if you're older, 35, and then I ask you, do you make decisions now as you're 35 that you made when you were 30? The answer would be, yeah, pretty much, because there's not that much change. So there's a lot of construction going on up here. And understandably, it's your value system. Do I do multa in the garage or do I not? Do I have unprotected sex or do I not? Am I heterosexual? Am I homosexual? Am I bisexual? Am I pansexual? These are all decisions you make around the age of, solidly around the age of 18. So these things are all coming together in your prefrontal cortex. All right. So what questions do you have on page 5? Not two. Basically, brain parts should be straightforward. You have these handouts now, so you can have them in front of you when you take the test, and I have to remind you of things. All right, let's go to page 2. By the way, there is a video, a little 2-minute video on action potential that explains. I don't think we have to go on the order. Of course. The action potential, I drew it the other day. You basically have a baseline, and then you have a threshold, and your nerve endings are basically at a baseline until something happens. I take your hand and squeeze it, and then you feel the sensory neurons fire, and you have an action potential. It goes up, it goes down below normal, and then creeps back up and goes to normal. Okay? If you get a sensation like a hair being drawn across your forearm, well, I can't feel it. No, but your body did. Your brain didn't sense it, but your body got it. Okay? So how about if I drag that hair around the elbow? Yeah, maybe you get closer to the threshold, but you still don't feel it. Then I take that hair and I run it across your cheek. Bam! You're above the threshold, therefore shoots up, goes down, comes back down to start over. And then all the questions about me patting you on the back, whether I pat you nicely or whether I give you a nice slap, it does not change this. This is like that light. It's either on or it's off. And when it's on, you can't send a message to it. It's already shooting its message, and you have to wait until here. So when you get that hard slap on the back, not only is this firing, but many thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of neural pathways are firing. And as soon as they get back to here, they fire again. That's when you know you're in pain. You sprain your ankle, this thing is going to repeat it again and again and again and again and again until the swelling comes down, and then it stops sending all those nasty messages. What? You done with that page? Next page, 29 through 41.
2-minute neuroscience. The action.
Okay, that's a much better drawing. You have the handout, got all the parts. I was hoping it was going to have the terminal ending, or terminal bud, terminal button. That one.
Quality writing makes your schoolwork better.
Oh, you better believe it.
Meet Grammarly, the digital writing assistant that helps students.
Welcome to 2-minute neuroscience, where I simplistically explain neuroscience topics in 2 minutes or less.
Well, I'm going to do it in less than 2 minutes.
1. By comparison.
Okay, so this is the sending neuron. This is the terminal bud, button, whatever you want to call it, the very end of the terminal branch. This is the synaptic gap. The vesicles are here. The electric message comes down the axon, goes to the vesicle. Okay, today we're going to talk serotonin. Serotonin vesicle moves over to the edge here, kicks out serotonin, it floats around here. Nope, that was dopamine. Nope, that's acetylcholine. Oh, no, that's the right one. That's serotonin. So it hooks up here. That chemical turns into an electric charge. This is a dendrite of another neuron. This is a axon. This is the dendrite. Then it sends the electric message boom. It goes into the soma and decides whether it's going to shoot down the reaction potential or not. Then this thing has already done its job, kicks the serotonin out, floats around here, looks for its receptor site. Oh, that's right, it's down here. So reabsorbs it, moves back, and it's stored. That's for all your feelings, all your things that have to do with your brain, pain, euphoria, depression, schizophrenia, everything is right in that synaptic gap. And all the medications that you would ever take for any of those diseases, mental illnesses, all work right there. (29 through 41), we done? You know the reuptake is when that serotonin, or dopamine, whatever it is in this case, serotonin, when that serotonin cell starts floating away from the receiving from the sending back towards the sending neuron, here comes the SSRI drug, comes up here and it calculates that serotonin, and when it comes back here, the guy at the door says, I don't know you, you're not getting in. Anyway, I think you have a fake ID, but you're not getting in. So that's what selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, SSRI, that's what it does. It inhibits that serotonin from going back to the vesicle. And since we are homeostatic beings, that vesicle says, hey, something screwed up here. I'm supposed to have 100. I only got 99. Send a message back to the soma. Hey, create another serotonin and send it down here so I can have my full complement of 100. And that's what happens. Number 35, a slap on the back is more painful than the pat on the back because it releases more neurons to fire and to fire more often. Reuptake is defined in 41. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter associated with schizophrenia. Serotonin is associated with depression. Endorphins, which are naturally produced neurotransmitters by the body. They make you feel good. So they go coming out of the sending neuron, going into the receiving neuron, because you're doing something that you really, really like. And endorphins are being pumped out. Could be hitting the wall while you're running. Could be feeling that rush when you're lifting weight and your muscles are all filled with blood. You feel great. Endorphins are being produced. You're engaging in some wonderful sexual activity, you're going to have endorphins being produced. If you're taking certain kinds of street drugs, they go right to those receptacles and mimic them. So the word morphine came from endorphins. Morphine is basically acts exactly like endorphins inside of your body, except it's from outside of the body. Painkillers do the same thing. Matter of fact, 52 mentions morphine. 53 mentions endorphins. Oh, little lesson on the difference between an agonist and an antagonist. Let's start with an antagonist. If I'm an antagonist to you, what am I likely to be? You like demonstration? What am I likely to be? Tell me, come on, tell me. Shut up, you antagonistic. SOB. Okay, here we go. Antagonism, right? Antagonistic. Same way with cells or chemicals. Antagonistic cells are the ones that block other ones. Like the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It stops the serotonin from being reuptaken. But on the other hand, it forces itself to produce more serotonin to take care of the deficiency. So it's kind of hard to describe. So let's keep it simple. Antagonistic, it blocks, it interferes. You take a painkiller, what does it do? It interferes with the pain message going into your brain. The pain message is being sent. You twist your ankle and it's all swollen. Trust me, the pain message is being sent to the brain. It just doesn't get there. Because some antagonists, like oxycodone, is stopping that pain message from getting to the brain, which, if you're in a lot of pain, is a good thing. So that leaves agonist. Well, agonist is the opposite. Agonist helps you. So, a drug molecule that increases a neurotransmitter's action is called an agonist. And then there's some questions on the next page, 58 through 73, that has to do with the autonomic nervous system, sensory neurons, motor neurons. Sensory, as you would think, because of the term sensory, it has to do with sensation. I can feel it, I can hear it, I can smell it, I can taste it. Those are senses. And motor neurons are making you do something. Hold your hand up and stretch your fingers. Your brain is telling you, activate those motor neurons to do that. 73, interneurons. Interneurons are just one neuron sending a message to another neuron. It's like an intercom. An intercom is like we had back in 4th grade, a little speaker on the wall. And now it's time for announcements. Hello, this is Mr. Murphy, your principal. Today at lunch, we're going to be having fish sticks for all you Catholics on Friday. Whatever. Intercom, intraneuron, it's within me, not from the outside. No big deal. Next page, 87 through 100. The endocrine system, which we have not talked about, is a system of glands. Actually, they're called ductless glands. They don't have a duct like other glands you have in your body. So the only way they get information, substances to you, is through the bloodstream. So you have a thyroid pumps out thyroxine or the thyroid hormone, and it doesn't have a duct, just shoot it out. So it puts it in the bloodstream. And you have lots of ductless glands that do that. They're called the endocrine system. 94, the endocrine system consists of your glands and secreting hormones. I don't want to confuse you about this, so I'll just mention it and you can put it in the back of your head. Neurotransmitters are created in the brain. That's why we call it a neurotransmitter. But the exact same substance can be created in one of these ductless glands. And it can act exactly like a neurotransmitter because it's the same substance. It's only created somewhere else. So that can get confusing. So is it a hormone or is it a neurotransmitter? Well, where did it come from? It could be exactly the same thing. So don't get too worried about that. Not going to be, although question 100, what's the answer to question 100? You know. You know? Increase blood sugar. Because epinephrine is part of that fight or flight. And the opposite is norepinephrine, which tends to calm you down, lower your blood pressure. All right, my course is really short, less than 2 pages. Really, all it is a description of some machines that measure activities in your brain. The problem with this machine is it has a mute button, but if you mute it, apparently that's just quiet. Yeah. Who cares about that? And if you blank it, oh yeah, that helps. No, it doesn't, because in a minute this comes on. So it's completely stupid. I have to turn the damn thing off so you don't have, so it allows me to look at the board. Anybody ever have an MRI? Somebody know? Have an MRI? Nobody had an MRI? You have? Mind telling us what it was? What part of your body? You have 2 persons.
My knee.
Your knee?
Yes.
Why would you have an MRI of the knee? Because you injured it somehow. MRIs are much greater information than an X-ray. An X-ray is really great to look at bones. But your problem, if you have a knee injury, shoulder injury, it's probably not the bone. It's probably other components like tendons, cartilage, things like that. They're not bones, so they don't show very well on an X-ray. So MRI shows everything. It's like looking right into your bone. If you look at some MRIs, I mean, they'll blow you away because they're in 3D. They can section out. They can slice your head this way. They can slice your head that way. Angles. It's all exactly appropriate to size and everything. Every vessel, every incredible detail. That's what an MRI is. There's only one functional MRI. You put a little F in front of this, and it turns it into a functional MRI. A functional MRI can only be done on your brain. Why? Because all the other MRIs are static. You look at your knee's not doing anything, it's looking at solid structure, or maybe not solid structure, it's looking at structures, that's it. Functional MRI means there's a function going on. So we put a radioactive dye in you. I've had this done. It's a lot of fun. Radioactive dye that's made of glucose. And it's got a little radioactive tracer on every little molecule of that glucose. So you drink it, and they slide you into the MRI, which is a big old magnet that swirls around you. It aligns all of your cells in one direction. If it's positive, it's pulling all the negative, like magnets, opposites attract. So it pulls and puts all of your cells in one direction, and then they take a picture of it. When you're doing a knee. When you're doing a functional MRI, they put you in there, and maybe they'll have you look at pictures. You want to figure out whether somebody's a psychopath or not? There's other ways of doing it, but one way you can do it is you can put them in an MRI, and you can flash some pictures. Okay, here's a picture of a cat. What you're going to see is your brain in your visual cortex, which happens to be the active brain, it fires up. Why? Because you've been asked to do a task. Look at this picture. So it has to go to the visual cortex to say, what is that? Oh, yeah. That's a cat. Oh, yeah, that's a house. Okay, we got it. And then they watch what parts of your brain fire up. Well, obviously, your visual cortex is going to fire up. And then sometimes some portions of your frontal part, getting up to here, your upper cortex, maybe. So, you look at a picture of a dog, it looks like this, fires up. You look at a picture of a dog with his head cut off, maggots crawling out of its neck, your visual cortex will fire up, but a whole bunch of emotions are going to fire up too. Even if you don't like dogs, you don't like looking at pictures of severed heads and crawling maggots. It's not nice, and your brain knows that. Okay? Now, you take a psychopath, and you show them that, and it's the same thing as showing them a picture of a chair. They have the visual cortex, they have some executive function to say, that's a chair, not a Volkswagen, that's it. It's so good that you can take a word like chair, and you tell the participants, some who are psychopaths, some are not, and you say, here's a little clicker. I'm going to show you some letters. If it makes a word, hit it. Chair, boom, hit it. Nothing. All right? psychopaths in this class. You see the word cancer, your brain is going to see it as a word, and you're going to hit the button. But because cancer is a word that means something emotional to us, especially if we have family members who have succumbed to cancer, you're going to have all this emotional response. Psychopaths? None. All right, let me show you another word. Another word? Yep, hit the button. When you see that, emotional sections of your brain fire up. Either because you've been sexually assaulted, you know somebody who's been sexually assaulted, or you're just familiar with the concept of rape. Not a good thing. We've probably got that going on in Afghanistan as we speak. Psychopaths, rape, share, they're equal. You can use a whole bunch of words, you know. Murder, decapitate. Yeah, they're a word, hit the button. But you can't stop your brain. You can't stop your brain from having an emotional reaction. Okay, enough of that. 25, the sequence of brain regions from the oldest to newest is what? You have the brain up here. It looks a little bit like it's shifting out on my BMW. This is your brain stem. This is your brain stem. This is your brain stem. So, growth is up, bottom, up, inside, out. So, let's look at 25. D, brainstem. This is O. Limbic system, here's the cerebellum. They don't mention cerebellum. What's next? Limbic system, where's that? That's all in here. And where's the cerebral cortex? Guarding the cerebrum. So clearly, answer D is correct. Any other questions on Lot 4? Okay, so finally, at the last mod, it's 23 pages long, so we will complete our mission today. On Thursday, we'll start with our new mods for next section, which I'm hesitant to put up without testing the study guide to make sure it's correct. So I've got some work to do for you. All right, another diagram. I guess I can hand this up to you, but you got it. That's what I did hand this up, didn't it? What did the arrows mean? That these three independent pieces are dynamically always changing and influence each other. It's an active, dynamic schematic here. These three parts of your body, and your sensation, and your thinking, and your cognitions, are all interactive all the time. How do you know that? Because if I put you in an MRI, your psychology says, oh yeah, 4-letter word, that's a word, hit the button. Meanwhile, your social side over here is going, ah! That's an ugly word. They're always interacting. They always will be interacting. So, here, for some reason, they start throwing the word in environment. For 1 and 2, they're talking about environment. Well, they should be talking about social, okay? Because your environment is what social is. Why they use that different term, I don't know. Question 3, where does heredity fall in this biopsychosocial? Which section? Bio. You have your hardcore genes, but you also have heredity, which is all 3 of these heredity. Everybody should know the answer to 6. You learned it probably in middle school. Just remember, the sperm and the ovum are the only ones who have 23. Everybody else has 46 because they're already paired up. The Lonely Hearts Club is in the ovaries and the testes because they haven't hooked up. They gotta wait for that special occasion. Number 12. Just like that light switch, genes are either turned on or they're turned off. And things that affect your gene expression, meaning turned on, are epigenetic factors. We just had the Summer Olympics in Japan. Some of you might have watched it. One popular event, especially from the U.S., is girls' gymnastics. Because it's like watching for a train wreck. They're doing such highly sophisticated, beautiful movements, and one error can be disastrous. So you kind of watch for the beauty of the movement, but then it's cringeworthy because you think, man, one slip and they're messed up. So, you take your favorite female gymnast, Simone Biles is the only one that I know. It's not probably a good example. But there's plenty of others, whether they're ice skaters or whatever. They are girls who can be 13, 14, 15, but when you look at them, they don't look like they're 15. Why? Because they haven't gone through puberty yet. When you go through puberty, as all of you have, you start getting these beautiful curves that drive us nuts. Then you get breast development, sometimes you get a bigger bone face. These things all suggest you are a young lady and you have gone through your first menstruation. So if you are a competitive athlete, you're a marathon runner or whatever, you are not likely to screw with your menstrual cycle. All right? But if you're an Olympic competitor and you've been doing your gymnastics since you were 4 or 5, when you get to be 10, 11, 12, when you would normally be going through your first menstruation, your body says, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. I got a competition I'm competing for. I'm training 7 days a week, many, many hours a day. And the body just says, time out. I'm not doing it. So you watch your favorite gymnast, and here she is. Probably have bigger boobs than she does. Unfortunately. Anyway, and then they go to the Olympics, they get their goals over, and let's say they're a skater. And then they join Walt Disney on Ice, right? And they're coming to the Coliseum. Walt Disney on Ice! Oh, my favorite gymnast, or not gymnast, skater is going to be there. So you go and you buy the tickets, you go in there and you see your favorite skater, and then all of a sudden, God, look at that shake. Boom, boom. What the hell's going on? Well, they finally went through menstruation from the 15 to 16. So that extreme exercise has stopped the natural progression of menstruation. And if you're a woman who's already menstruated, if you happen to be in the military and you get stuck in some, I guess not anymore, some crap hole like Afghanistan, where you're dodging bullets or dodging IEDs, your stress level's up, you're carrying pounds of body armor, you're working in crappy weather, burning, scorching heat, 140 degrees to really freezing cold, depending on what season it is and where you're working. A lot of stress on your body. A lot of women stop menstruating altogether until they come back. When they come back, they get back to homeostatic. But that's an example of epigenetic influence. There's a study, I got a video on that too. I don't think I posted it on epigenetics, right? You didn't see that. Probably too early to do that. But there was a study that somebody was in Iceland, in Verboten, Iceland, and they were studying the public health records of these people from Verboten, Iceland, which is really close to the North Pole, okay? And what they found out in the 1800s was periodically people had real problems with weight. And what they found out was it's a landlocked city. And in the olden days, the only way you get to it is by ship. And during winter, of course, all the waterways are frozen. So you have to make and save enough food for winter, because once winter hits, you can't leave and nobody can come see you. So that's the way their lifestyle is. So some years they would have a bountiful group of plants and animals, and so everybody ate well. But then there were other years where the crops were not so good, maybe the animals had slaughtered so many, and so they were on a sparse diet. So what happens, like some of us, when you get into the days where you have a lot of food, you can eat whatever you want because you have plenty, and some of it's going to go to waste, then we say, okay, it's open season, I'm going to eat whatever I want. And everybody is overweight. Now, when they studied them from a public health point of view, they found out that the people who gorged during the heyday, they lived 5 less years on average than the people who didn't do that and lived more through the time or scarcity, that's hard to put together, lean times, let's put it that way, lean times. Those people live 5 years longer, right? So if your parents lived in the lean years and you were born during that time, they passed that epigenetic tag, or mark, they call it in this book, that epigenetic tag onto your DNA. And so when you grow up, you're likely to be there. And the opposite is true. They overate, now they're obese, you're going to be obese. And guess what? Grandkids also. It takes 2 generations to get rid of it. So all of us who are overweight, we're dooming our grandchildren. No, but it is a predisposition that you, when you see obesely overweight people in the restaurant, look at their children. 99.9% of the time, no matter what age their kid is, they're grossly obese as well. So is it genetics? Is it heredity? Or is it social? Psychological? It's going to be a combination of all three. All right, mod 6, page 1 is over. Mod 6, page 2, talking a little bit about twins, identical twins. The best thing to research the influence of social environment here is identical twins, because they have exactly the same DNA. And you can compare them, twins that were raised together, twins that were separated at birth and raised in two different families. And it's shocking. You go find a set of twins, identical twins, 20 years later, find them, most of the time you don't even know that they have an identical twin, right? And you get them together, what do you find out? They look the same, they dress the same, they hold their beer mug the same. The book used to have some guys who were firefighters, and they look exactly the same. Same hair, the way the beer. You can't really control your hair. The way you wear your hair, you can control. But if you're getting bald or something, you're getting bald. So if one is getting male pattern baldness in the back, of course the other one is because it's exactly the same. That's no big surprise. What's a big surprise is they both chose to be firefighters. They both marry, sometimes, this is crazy, marry people with the same first name. Crazy. Just a lot. They like to do the same sports. Well, you know, you have that in common with a lot of people. Oh, I played soccer in college. Hey, so did I. Oh, we must be distant relatives. No. Not necessarily. So, fraternal twins, of course, are twins that were born at the same time because two eggs escaped the ovaries and both of them sperm got to them. So, with an identical twin, it's only one egg, one sperm, and for some reason it goes through mitosis, a separation, which doesn't normally happen, but with twins it does. So now you have two cells instead of one. And that's how you get twins. And that's why, of course, they're always boys or girls, because they have the same XX and XY. That explains all that. Epigenetics, I talked about a little bit. Epigenetic effect. If chronic child abuse alters a victim's gene expression, doesn't change your genes, it changes the expression. In such a fashion as to trigger depression, this would be said to be illustrative of an epigenetic effect. We'll talk a little bit sometime about attachment theory, whether you had good attachment or secure, successful attachment as a child, or whether you had one of the other three. And whether you did or not depends on how you interact in relationships as an adult. So there's lots of things that can affect good, secure attachment. It's something that you can overcome. If you're a person that seems to date the wrong person all the time, come back to find another one with history to not satisfying, then the thing that all your exes have in common is you. That's the only thing they have in common is you. So if you got 4 ex-wives, I'm looking at 4. The only thing they have in common is you. So if that's going on, then you need to take a look at yourself. It's likely to deal with attachment. All right, let's open the floor for your questions on any of this testable items. I will send you out a message later today as to whether we're gonna have the test, how soon we're gonna be able to do it. Hopefully, I'll release the test tomorrow, and we'll have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to take it. But I gotta make the test first, and I haven't done it yet. Now I'm worried because of my experience and with my food tech job class. So I'm gonna have to get through that whole crazy. Now, did anybody have problem downloading the book? I'll put it up. I have it on USB. I have this, one of you guys has got problems, so she's not here right now, so. But fortunately, none of you are in that situation. All right? So the earliest you're gonna have the test is tomorrow. And that may not happen if I don't figure this out. I'll have to think optimistically and say that it won't happen. All right, and then I'll start putting stuff on the new information of the new mods on Wi-Fi. I think a lot of it's up there. Some of it's unavailable because back before they expanded my bandwidth, it would post something, but then it would say invalid file. So the only thing you get is the name of the damn file. You can't get it. So that means I have to erase that and go back and find the file and re-update. Okay. All right. Thanks for being here. Nobody came in late while I was calling roll. Yeah, you did. You are. Yes. Check it out. What's up, my friend? Yeah. Okay, so can you make benefit of this or not? Yeah, I'll let you take it. What I'm saying, you have something connected to it? There's only 2 things. What do you do? Oh, yeah, that's right. What you got? Okay, we had, with her, she hasn't done six. Check her business. You do not so. This has a lot of answers. I didn't answer them all. If you want to look at that one, flying through her stuff. Okay.
So,
Well, yeah, you have that money,
yes,
of course.
and that one, is it D?
Characteristic adjustments.
B? I put,
Characteristics of genetics that are genetically transferred to various species. Yeah, you're right. You're expert. I was thinking, genetic tag. Human sperm, you're right, there was 23 and a half.
that one I didn't,
Second, also, depending on environmental conditions, specific genes could be either on or off. It's set up by genetic material, right?
I wasn't sure like the difference, what was the?
Well, marks are just little pieces. Genetic material is everything, all of the DNA, all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Explain it out so you know what's not going to take part in processes of heredity and environment that determines the same processes age, when to go separate from internal environmental influences on personality traits and most clearly highlighted by comparing identical twins together with identical twins with identical rays. Oh, identical twins raised together with identical twins raised apart. Then you can sort of tell, my way, it's not mine. It's written. You raise two genetically identical twins in two separate families, and you'd be surprised when someone will.
Oh, no wonder there was an example yesterday when I was reading on the Mark 6 in the book. It talked about like two identical twins that were separated from birth and then they met up and then
Yeah,
they're pretty much the same.
yes, that's pretty freaky.
Yeah, that is.
Personalities of adopted children, not like the adopted parents, which is pretty good. All the environmental skills, this is so stupid. I didn't read this question. I didn't even know
Yeah, I don't
the
know this.
correct answer. It's gotta be this one, because it's really a stupid answer. But this one will not be on the fence, because it's stupid. Okay? Yep. So your nature of being attractive affects how others respond to you. And that's this is the subject of successful attachment. This is the beginning of attachment theory. Reproductive success. That's That's what reproductive success is. You survive so that you can reproduce. If you're a brown lizard on the white sands, you die. So if you're a lighter colored lizard, you have a better chance of living long enough to have children, and you procreate with another light colored lizard, and hopefully your children will be light colored. If they're dark, they're black, if they're light, you can live. So, that's how it works over generations. The behaviors that promote reproductive sex are genetically predisposed. So you got them.
Oh, thank you. So I kind of did already. Right?
Oh, yeah. Your intuition is good.
Yeah, totally. I was like saying, and then like all night trying to read lots of. But
Awesome.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's because I have my cousin here. With for the history teacher. It's because I have my class here with the history teacher. You know?
The history teacher?
Yeah, Mr. James. Do you know if he came today or?
Boy, I don't know. You mean in this classroom?
Yes, sir.
No, there was nobody in this classroom. I've been here since like 7:30 in the morning. You have history in this class?
Yes. And I was looking for a instructor.
Wow, maybe you changed classrooms.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, sorry.
Mr. When is the test?
Huh?
When are you going to upload the test?
Zero what?
When are you going to upload the test?
When I create it, hopefully it'll be today. If not, I'll send out a message saying I haven't created it yet. I only have two choices. I can either, hopefully it'll work, Blackboard, I say it says it might work. If it doesn't, then I'm gonna have to resort to using a former test, uploading it, and then I have to have an answer sheet. Because Blackboard can't grade it unless it's in the form that Blackboard likes. So it's not impossible, it's just hard to.
Thank you, sir.
I used to have. Yeah, so,